Hey guys, it's Joe here from the Phelps Racing channel, and this video is going to be going over um, how to get into a race in Iracing and how to set up your wheel, your force feedback, all of that in Iracing. So I have Thrustmaster stuff, so um, this is pretty much going to be a follow through for Thrustmaster, but pretty much any wheel that you have, like Fanatec or anything like that, it's going to have some sort of control hub, which is this right here on the screen. So we're going to open this real quick so you can see what this looks like. So obviously I have the T150. This is what it looks like when you open it up. So if you click properties, this is going to give you the option to change your wheel range. Okay. This right here, the axis, that is, where your wheel is based on. So it's a good way just to check to make sure everything's working properly. Now, one of the biggest things is the wheel rotation. So right now I have it set to 1080, and you can see how much I move the wheel 90 degrees and where it's at. Now, so we're going to say 41.7 at about 90 degrees. If I take this down to even, let's say, 900, which is what most of the wheels are set at, and I think that's what this comes set at. Now I'm going to turn it to 90 degrees again, and look, we're at 40%. But see how fast this moves? Now, we're going to compare it again with 1080. Now, I'm going to go to the other extreme, okay? I'm going to come way down here to, so let's say 540. Now, the wheel's almost straight. Watch what happens when I barely move the wheel. I'm at 90 degrees now. We're at 33.6. So, as you can see, it causes that to move faster. Again, this is 1080. That's 90 to 90. And we're going to go way to the other side. So this is going to be a massive difference here. That's 90 degrees. Boom, look. I'm already at lock. Like, the wheel will not go any further than that. That's it. Boom, boom. Whereas 1080, go around that far every time. And this is just to show you what the wheel rotation does, because you can change that in iRacing too. Now you have your throttle, your brake, and the clutch. I have the T3 PA pedals. You don't ever want to do combined, because if you do, one, you're already on the gas and brake at the same time, but watch what happens when I hit the throttle. Brake goes up. Watch what happens when I hit the brake. Brake goes down, throttle goes up. And then clutch is obviously still by itself. From there you can check updates, the buttons. Basically just make sure your buttons work. As you can see, this is the D-pad switch up here, and then these are your buttons. That's the PlayStation button there. Got my buttons down here. 1 and 2 is the paddle shifters. So that here you can test your forces. Like if I click blown, like an engine, that's what it does. Blown tire, so flat tire, whatever that is, I don't know. There's all kinds of different stuff. Won't be rude. Now you'll get that, like especially at Auto Club, you'll get that. Anyway, just test the different stuff. So your gain settings. Now you can see I have mine pretty much maxed out because I honestly feel like that this wheel isn't enough for me because I've grown used to it now. I have this on as well. Now you can see I have this checked right here by the game, and that's so you can change some of your settings in iRacing. But that's basically your wheel setup there. Make sure everything works. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug my wheel real quick, let it do its calibration, and I'll show you what happens in iRacing when your wheels are not, when you first load in iRacing or turn on your PC. So unplug this real quick, and then plug this back in. The wheel's gonna do its calibration. Alright, so we got the wheel calibrated. I have not touched the pedals yet because there's a thing that I want to show you with that. So anyway, so click on the race that you want to go to. Obviously you can see race, practice. So when you're registering for a race, make sure you pay attention to that, and then also what time the race starts. So I'm not really interested in doing a race. I'm just doing this video to show you guys what we're going to be doing. So I went into a practice. So this is the thing that it'll go through. Okay, now I'm ready to join. So from here you can either withdraw, which will allow you to pick a different race, or you can join, which we're going to join, and another window is going to pop up. Boom. Somebody else is in here too. That's fine. So I'm doing auto club because there's a certain thing that I want to show you with the force feedback settings at auto club. And auto club's a good one because the backstretch is real bumpy and it really shows the difference. Takes a minute for it to load. And that's nothing that any hardware in your PC is going to change. That's just on iRacing side because there's a lot of stuff that it loads in. But this is your track map. Okay. The red is pit road, and your blue line is the line you have to follow when you leave pit road. So you cannot go above the pit exit till that point. Now your lower classes, that'll be mapped out on the track, but since this is B class, it won't be mapped out. And also in B class, you do not, it will not allow you to use the pit road speed limiter. So you have to watch your speed yourself. But anyway. So we got our steering here, and we got our gearbox. So basically, when you set up your wheel, you'll come into iRacing, and then you'll set it up here. You'll choose how you want to do your steering. Obviously, as you can see, it's moving the steering wheel there. Then I have my shifters set up as the paddles because I don't have the actual H-pattern shifter, which I do plan on getting. So you can see that's down. That's yeah. That's downshifting, that's upshifting. It's kind of like a sequential if you kind of think about it. Now your pedals. This is one thing that I want to show you. So with Thrustmaster, I don't know if the other brands of pedals are like this, but Thrustmaster. So it took me a while to figure this out too, which is really was kind of aggravating once I realized what I was doing. But this is going to be your throttle, this is going to be your brake, and this is going to be your clutch. So if I slowly press the throttle, you're going to see it start to move. Okay, now I'm barely on the throttle. Now watch. Once I get to about right here, it's going to go full.
Yeah, what's interesting is
Boom. See how it went full throttle? I'm still like not even 50% on the throttle. Now I'm all the way on the throttle. But now watch. the throttle is much more linear to what my foot is doing. Now that will stay until you either unplug your pedals, wheelbase, or you turn off your computer. Same way with the brake. I'm going to do that with the brake. Now your brake is going to depend on your pedal setup. I have a modded brake pedal, so mine's pretty stiff, so I just push it as hard as I can, and then I let off. And then that's because I'm usually maybe about there on my braking in the ovals, the road courses. You know, I'm probably gonna be somewhere up here. And then the clutch pedal, same way. You know, see it jumped up there like that. But now we've got full linear motion there. So that's set up. Now we have all of our force feedback settings. So you got your strength, the wheel force, smoothing, dampening, and minimum force. So your wheel force is going to be the torque that your wheel produces. So that's going to be different based on whatever wheel you have. This, I thought I read that it was 3 Newton meters, so that's what I set it to. Okay. Some cars going around the track there. Your strength. Now that is, sometimes people think that is, let me mute this car real quick. Okay, there we go. Just kind of muted that car real quick. Anyway, so the strength, people think that that is the actual force of the wheel. That is not what that does. What this does is, obviously down here it tells you at the bottom of the display down here what it's for. But what I like to say that this does is the level of detail. So if I turn this all the way down, I'm going to take this car around the track, and we're gonna see what it does here. Yeah, I almost stalled it. This is like, I don't know, feels weird. This could be because I turned that strength down. Anyway, what we're doing here is, so in the back stretch of, and there's a car coming. So you can see the car moving around a lot. And you see how it's bouncing? My wheel is, it's real smooth, which is fine. But the problem is you lose that detail of when the car starts to slide around. Yeah, I just wrecked myself. Anyway. So now we're going to do something different. We are going to take the strength. We're going to max that dude out. This is going to show you what that does. This to me is the best setting that you want to really dial in, and that's going to be a comfort thing between everybody. Now the detail is going to be, one, the wheel is a little bit stiffer, but it also accounts, see, now it's already vibrating, and that's from the bumps in the track. Now as we get down this backstretch, you're going to see this wheel go crazy. And it's not because of anything weird going on with the car or over powered settings. That is how bumpy this track is. And that's what you're feeling in the wheel, is the detail of the bumps. I usually wear gloves too, but this is just a lap or two, so as you see, we're going to come out of this corner and get a little bumpy down the straightaway. As long as you're turning a wheel, it doesn't make that big of a difference. Other wheels, it might be different, but the T150 seems to have a little bit of a dead spot in the center. and I'll show you what I mean by that. But again, like I said, I'm down the backstretch here at speed now, and I'm barely holding on to the wheel here, so the wheel's doing whatever it wants to do. And that's the bumps in the track. That's not any setting or anything that's gonna change that. Anybody who's ever been on a racetrack knows that they're not perfectly smooth unless they're a fresh repave, and even then you're still gonna run across some bumps and cracks and things in the track. Anyway, so that's what that does, and to me that's the most important setting, is with your 4-speed back, and I had that at like 3.2. So that's that. Smoothing. Now the smoothing, this is something I haven't played with a whole lot, but one thing I didn't like about it was, and it could be the low torque of this wheelbase itself, when I had the smoothing turned up even like 5%, I lost the feel of the car when it would get loose in the corner, and I kept wrecking because I couldn't, like, I still had the wheel turned and it never got light, and the car just spun out on its own, and I never felt that because the smoothing was turned on. Dampening is supposed to add a sense of weight to the wheel. You could probably play with these two and kind of dial that setting in to where the wheel isn't doing all that crazy rocking around with the bumps and stuff, but again, you're losing some of that detail. I like to have the detail. And the minimum force. So the minimum force is like the small details that some of these wheels can't produce. Some of the lower end wheels can't produce, and that basically boosts those settings. So if I turn this on with the strength turned all the way up going down the backstretch, this wheel would be uncontrollable going down the backstretch because it would just be all over the place. So, but the minimum force, what that does is it boosts those small bumps and things in the track, so you can feel that in a wheel that doesn't produce a whole lot of torque. So that's that. These are all your field of view settings, and there's a calculator out for that with measuring tape. You measure how far you are sitting away from the screen, and then you pretty much do all your calculations with that. This is for those who run the butt kicker stuff on your rigs. You can adjust, I don't have one, but with my headphones I kind of had an option for it, but it didn't work as good as what I would hoped it did. Graphics settings there. So we're going to turn this back up. So there's that. Now, as far as getting set up in the car, so this is your garage page. Obviously, if you're in an open setup, you can change your tire pressure here. And after a run, once you come into the pits, it'll show you what your tire wear percentages are and your tire pressures. Now, that will not update live, and even I have that stuff on here. With the sim dashboard, but it does not update live. The only time it's going to update is when you exit the car or you come into the pit. You come into your pit box. Turn this back on. So the main thing with the fixed setups, like I said, the only thing you can change is your steering ratio, your steering offset, and your brake bias. Now obviously, open setup, you'd be able to change all of this stuff: tape, ballast, cross weight, nose weight. You'd be able to change all this stuff over there. You'd be able to change all of this stuff. So as you can see, fixed setup rates. So sometimes some of the cars have notes, so like the fixed setup is for third gear on some short tracks. I've also seen a car that said shift at this RPM. I think it was a Miata. But anyway, so your steering ratio, you got 8-to-1, 10-to-1, 12-to-1, 14-to-1, and 16-to-1. So I'm going to explain what that does real quick. So 8 to 1. 8 to 1 is what's considered a faster steering ratio. It is easier to save the car, but it's also easier to burn up the tires over a long run. And if I had to explain how that works, is your 8 is here, your 1 is on the car in the game. So right now, if I turn this wheel 8 degrees, it turns the wheels 1 degree on the car in the game. Okay? Now, 10 degrees. So I'm turning it further to get that same 1 degree. 12 to 1. Turn it even further to get that same 1 degree. So this is starting to get into slower steering ratio. And basically what these are is comfort. It's going to be how you feel you drive the car. Now, when I was driving the car on the track, I was at 16 to 1. And the reason for that is you can be much smoother with the wheel, in my opinion, and it's easier to save the tires over a long run, which is massive in these oval races. Like, you start getting into 30, 40 lap runs and you've saved maybe 10% more tire than everyone else, you're going to be gaining a ton of time on them. Steering offset. So your steering offset is where your wheel is positioned center. So if I have the car going straight down the track, +6, steering wheel is going to be a little bit to the right. But now, some of these cars are set up with a skew. So the car kind of wants to track to the right. So you have this plus steering offset to center up the car, and then your steering wheel is center. I play with this, like I'll go down the backstretch and make sure the car is going straight down the backstretch, and I look at my wheel and see where my wheel's positioned at, and kind of change this just to get the wheel centered up, because if you leave this setting where it's at with the ARCA car, your wheel is 45 degrees going straight down the track, and then when you go into like one of the turns, your wheel's straight but your car's turning left. It's just kind of a weird feeling for me, and I got a book over here that I've written down all of my settings for, so I can just kind of look at that and set my offset, and off we go. And it's usually pretty close. As I do updates, sometimes this number will change a little bit, but not too much. Front brake bias. So right now, 65%, it's basically saying 65% of my braking force is at the front wheels. Now, obviously, each car is going to have its own setting. So you can go with this Xfinity car, you can go as high as 84% in the front. That means you have 16% in the rear. And then you can also go down as far as, I believe, 50%. 50% brake in the front. Then from there, you can configure your wheel. You can configure 2 buttons on your wheel like I did. I got the ignition and starter. Those are the L3, R3 buttons down here. This is PlayStation version of the wheel. Brake bias set. There we go. Bends buttons 2 and 4, which is my triangle and circle button on the wheel. So triangle will up the steering ratio, or the brake bias, sorry, and the circle will decrease the brake bias. And what that in-car control does is it gives you ±3% on top of what you have it set here. Now, the advantage to this is if you got a 50% brake bias on a track like this, the car gets tight over a long run, but the more rear brake bias you put in the car, the easier it is to get the car to rotate in going into the corner. If you just barely touch the brakes, it'll kind of loosen up the car a little bit. Now go the opposite way with road racing. You want more front brake bias so it keeps the car stable on corner entry. If you ran this brake bias at Martinsville, you would chatter the rear tires and end up in the wall every corner. So that's what all that does. That's pretty much it for fixed setups. You can assign buttons for your driver looking left or right. Like I said, there's your field of view right there. And then you also got some of your in-car controls. Now the gray ones are for probably Formula 1, GT class cars. The black highlighted ones are the ones that pertain to this car on this track. So you're gonna assign a second throttle, second brake, second clutch, just in case like something goes wrong with your pedals. You can divert to that if need be. Left spring, right, that's like probably spring rubber. That's probably open setup stuff. Same with that. I haven't really played around with that. Like, I haven't been in open setup races at all. So now this is more going to be for your keyboard. Obviously you got your different descriptions of what they do, and then the button assignments that you have. My favorite one is the dash box. Now if I go into the car, it's getting a little late, I'll go to bed. This is your black box. Now you can control it there. And I also have the left to right buttons on my D-pad on the wheel for that. So again, this is what I was talking about. So this is the triangle button, and this is the circle button. So that's the plus minus 3% that you can do. So like, say if you get a caution and you're at minus 3% and you're coming into your pit box, that'll put you at 47% to the front and 53% to the rear. Your car's not going to stop very good going in your pit box. So kind of go this other way, and it'll help you stop a little bit in your pit box, because I tend to overshoot my pit box because I forget to change that. Some in-car controls for your field of view, and you can also change your force feedback strength. So if you're on a track that is smoother, it's not as bumpy, and you want to up that, you can. Or if you got a really bumpy track like Darlington or something like that, you can decrease it. Michigan's pretty rough too. Here's your radio controls. This is some of your lap timing. I mean, this is all black box stuff. Standings. So this will update every time you pass the start-finish line. This, as you can see, updates as you are on the track. So this is the gap between me and that car that just passed me, and this is the car that's behind me. So the car behind me is closing in, and that one's pulling away. Fuel races, you can add fuel, you can completely disable fuel, you can take the tire off. The fast repair, and the rookie and D-class races, say you get a little bit of damage for whatever reason, you decide to come into pit road and fix it, and it's a 30, it's not something that's massively significant. Me personally, I wouldn't even take a pit stop for that, because you're still going to go down lap, but you can click that and you won't use your fast repair. Now if you get the car totaled and have to get towed back to pit road, or you limp it back to pit road because parts are falling off of it, and you got that fast repair there, your car's fixed in seconds and you're back out on the track. Fuel and tire races, you can take right sides or left sides. You cannot change your tire pressure. See, now he's changing my left side tires. Now he's changing my right side tires. But in the fixed setup races, you cannot change your tire pressure. So that is, again, your tire info, that's from the lap that you did. There's your tape. You can't change any of that in the fixed setup. That's probably your spring rubbers. You can't change any of that either. Brake bias. That's the only thing you can change. The only thing you cannot change in the car once you get going is your steering ratio and your offset. Now if we look at that, so right now we're in practice. So when you first go into the lobby, you'll be in like this practice style form, and then there'll be another button that pops up right here when the race starts. So if you click the race and not the practice, you'll go into a practice session even with the race. And once the race is ready to start, you'll get a notification on the screen. A little green box pops up here and you click that, and then it'll go into the actual race session, and then you can see who's in your race, what kind of connection they have, and how good it is. If one of under the quality and the ping right here, if their numbers are yellow or red, they're going to be blinking. And if they're blinking, I'd stay away from them, because it's hard to tell where they're going to land when they come back on the track. But once you get into the practice session, say if you're in the practice session but you're not in the race, and you set this up, and then you go into the race, you're going to have to go back in and set this up, because it'll be back to where it was. But once you're in the race session, even though if it's practice or qualifying, whatever you set this up as, it'll still be there. After qualifying is over and you get on the grid for the race, whatever you have here, you're stuck with, besides the brake bias. So keep that in mind. Some people do run different setups for qualifying versus a race in their steering ratio. Some people run a little bit quicker steering ratio in the race versus the steering, and the steering offset's maybe a little different, but I usually keep it the same. Here you can see your best. I have it set up for overall best lap time, and this will be my optimal lap time. So my best lap time is my optimal lap time. Other than that, that's pretty much about it for getting your wheel set up and getting into a race. Oh, one other thing too is this. This is kind of the, if you have an actual H pattern shifter, you'd probably click this. And then you can have your shift aid. You can have auto shift, auto blip, auto clutch, anti-stall clutch. These will kind of help you out on road courses if you're not very good with doing the heel toe shifting or rev matching and all that. I drive a manual every day, and that's the way I drive my car is rev match downshifting every year, just so it's easier on the trans and clutch and all that. So I'm used to doing it. And I don't have the auto engine start because I like to, in fuel and tire races, I can shut off the engine and save fuel and all that. So, but other than that, that's pretty much it. Anybody got any questions, comments, whatever? Post it up in the chat, and I'll do the best I can to answer questions. But hopefully this helps everybody out, or somebody out at least. And hope you all have a good day.